She walked past the bowl of chips like it didn't exist, heels clicking, perfume thick enough to taste. Dress too new to be for me. She paused at the door. "I'll be back before people show up," she said, not meeting mine. "I'm seeing someone." Silence. "No, I'm seeing someone isn't dating." No hesitation, no panic, like she was picking up dry cleaning. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The punch I'd spent an hour mixing started to tremble in its glass bowl as my hand gripped the edge of the table. The sliced limes looked up at me like they knew. Maybe they did. She turned the handle halfway gone. I spoke finally. "Do I know him?" She didn't even pretend to lie. "You've heard me say his name." That was the part that shattered me. Not just the betrayal. Not just the cold way she walked out like we were roommates sharing a kitchen. It was the certainty in her tone, the confidence that I wouldn't do anything. I would just sit there finishing the deviled eggs and waiting for guests to show up while she curled herself around someone else. I stared at the clock. 3:04 p.m. Guests were supposed to arrive at 6 o'clock. It took 3 minutes for me to move. It's not because I was planning something, but because I finally felt the weight of everything I'd ignored. I picked up her phone from the counter, unlocked it of course. She never needed to hide anything, or maybe she thought I'd never look. Messages. Dozens. Too many. "I can't wait to feel your hands again. He's making sangria. Like that changes anything, lol. I'll pretend to be sweet after, just like we planned." I read those words with the same kind of blank numbness you feel when your foot falls asleep. Dangerous. Dangerous. Then I opened the drawer under the sink, pulled out the party labels. "Hello, my name is ... quotes with a Sharpie. I wrote on 3 of them. I peeled them and stuck them on the door, the cooler, and the wall right above the snack table. Then I went upstairs, grabbed the small box she kept her keepsakes and photos, little souvenirs that pressed rose from our 2nd anniversary, and dumped the contents into a gift bag. I placed it on the table like a door prize. The note inside: "Read, your audience arrives at 6. Hope he stays long enough to see it." And then I left. I didn't call anyone. I didn't cancel. I just walked out into the sun like a man watching the house he built flicker into smoke. She thought I'd stay. She thought wrong. And that party happened, just not the way she planned. I didn't have a destination. Walking past the mailbox, down the slope where the neighborhood kids chalked up the sidewalk, through the park where couples held hands and laughed like betrayal didn't exist, I kept hearing her voice in my head, cool, detached, like she was, announcing a delay on a train. "I'm seeing someone." No rage, no apology, just pure, dull indifference. That was the real wound, not that she was cheating, but that she had no fear telling me. I ended up in the parking lot behind McKinley's hardware store, sitting on a curb next to a soda machine that hadn't worked in years. My hands were still sticky with lime juice from the drinks I prepared, but all I could think about was the way her earrings shimmered as she walked out the door. Those earrings were mine, a birthday gift 2 years ago. She wore them for him. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my friend Cody. "Hey man, we still good for tonight? Want me to bring anything?" Stared at it for a while, thumbs hovering. I didn't know what to say. Yes, no, pretend everything was normal? "No, not this time." I typed back. "Party still on? Come on, time, and bring your camera." I don't know what possessed me to say that. It just happened. Maybe it was impulse. Maybe it was me trying to reclaim something dignity. Closure. No. All I knew was I couldn't crawl back into that house and pretend. I couldn't smile while she paraded back in with perfume that didn't belong to me and words. It's rehearsed in someone else's bed. And yet I didn't want to stop the party. I wanted her to walk back into it and feel a collapse around her. When I returned to the house an hour later, everything was exactly how I'd left it, except the silence. The kind of silence that hums in your chest, the kind that almost dares you to speak. I looked around at the lanterns hanging from the pergola, the table, set with name cards, the speakers still playing her playlist on loop. It was supposed to be our night. Instead, it was about to become hers alone. I went in the guest room closet and pulled out the large cardboard box labeled Summer Decor. Beneath the streamers and plastic flamingos, I found the small projector. I'd used at last year's Halloween party. I dusted it off, set it up against the far wall of the living room, and plugged it into my laptop. Then I did what I had told myself I'd never do. I opened a hidden folder, every screenshot, every photo, every time-stamped calendar event I had quietly saved over the past 6 weeks. I hadn't planned to use it, not really. Back then I was just trying to understand, trying to convince myself that I was imagining things. But now I wasn't trying to understand anything. I was ready to show the truth. I arranged the files in a slide, show nothing explicit. Nothing cruel, just facts, messages. Her laughing with him outside the office at 10 p.m. A receipt from the same boutique hotel booked every Friday for a month. A group photo from a work dinner where she conveniently cropped me out before posting. It was all there, polite, clear, undeniable. I queued it up, and then I sat on the back porch drinking the warm sangria she never bothered to taste. The sky was turning amber when the first car pulled up. I heard voices, laughter, the kind of forced joy people wear like Cullen, and waited, sipping slowly as more guests filled the house. I didn't say much, just nodded, smiled faintly, and pointed to the living room where the projector screen had a simple welcome message that read, "Tonight's feature, the truth." It wasn't until Celia walked in grinning, cheeks flushed, her hair slightly messy in a way I recognized all too well, that the air in the room began to shift. She saw the guests, she saw me, and then she saw the screen behind me light up with the first image. Her hand froze on the strap of her purse, her smile vanished. She hadn't even made it to the snack table before the first photo appeared, the one of her leaning over the restaurant table. Laughing with Jace, her hand on his chest, the date and time stamp in bold white letters. My voice didn't need to explain anything. She turned to me, mouth slightly open. I took another sip of sangria. The room grew quieter with each slide, and then I finally spoke just one line, barely above a whisper, but loud enough for every ear to catch. "You said you'd be back before the party started. Technically, you're late." Her face paled, but that wasn't the end, because what she said next was something none of us expected. And that Reddit is when it all truly began to unravel. Celia's mouth opened, then closed again like she was trying to find a script she hadn't rehearsed. She glanced around the room, trying to gauge who had seen what, who was staring at her, who might be ready to whisper something once she walked past. The next slide appeared behind her, a blurry image from a distance, her hand holding Jay's in the parking lot near his car, the timestamp just 4 days ago. A sharp breath came from someone near the snacks. I couldn't see who. Maybe it was Cody, maybe it was someone from her yoga group. It didn't matter. Celia took one shaky step forward, then turned toward me with wide, almost wild eyes. "You did this?" she asked, voice trembling beneath a strained smile. I just looked at her, still seated, my half-empty glass on the table beside me. "No," I said calmly, "you did. I just hit play." That was when she snapped, right in front of everyone. She marched up to me and hissed, "You're humiliating me." There it was. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I didn't mean to." Not even a fake denial, just immediate self-preservation, as if the betrayal was irrelevant and the only crime committed here was that I didn't keep it hidden for her. "I gave you 8 years, I said quietly, standing to face her. I could feel everyone watching, some shifting uncomfortably, some wide-eyed, no one daring to interrupt. 8 years of loyalty, of effort, of believing your late nights and empty kisses were just burnout, and now I'm the villain because I showed people what I've been living through." Her eyes darted toward the projector again, which was now showing a screen grab of a message. I wish she'd just throw one of those boring parties and stay out of my way. I'm so done pretending. Her name, her number, her words, no filter. She turned her back to me, then facing the room. "None of you understand," she said, voice louder, tinged with desperation. "We were going through things. Vernon hasn't been present for a long time, and that, I'll admit, stung, because it wasn't just a lie. It was a twisted version of a truth she created to feel better about what she did. Maybe I hadn't been exciting. Maybe I was too routine, too careful, too soft. But I was there. I always showed up. I always waited for her. Boy, I thought that meant something. I was present enough to plan this party, to make your favorite sangria, To pick out that stupid candle sent you, said made the house feel romantic. But you know what? I was never present for the man you met on Wednesdays, the lunches you took. Without telling me the excuses that all somehow involved emergency calls and client dinners. She froze. Silence stretched again, but this time a voice broke it, not mine. It was Cody. He stepped forward slowly, holding his camera by the strap. I brought the camera like you asked, he said cautiously, looking between us. You want me to turn it off? I shook my head. No, leave it running. Celia turned to him sharply. You're filming this? I thought I was part of the party, Cody said, almost apologetic. I mean, Vernon didn't say. She stormed past and toward the front door, heels stabbing the floor, her purse swinging violently. She muttered something under her breath. Maybe a curse, maybe a name, but I didn't stop her. No one did. The door slammed. I turned toward the group still standing in our living room, all awkward stares and shallow breaths. The slideshow frozen now on a photo of her bracelet hanging from the rearview mirror of Jace's car. I understand if anyone wants to leave, I said, voice steady, but if you stay, you're going to see the rest. Nobody moved, and so I hit play again. But that wasn't even the most shocking part of the night. Because 15 minutes later, while the room had sunk into a quiet disbelief, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in years, and what the caller said turned this whole thing upside down completely. At first, I wasn't going to answer the call. My hand hovered over the screen like it might bite me, and no number. No voicemail, but something about the timing felt intentional, like fate had decided that one betrayal wasn't enough for one evening. I stepped out to the front porch while, inside, the projector was still playing through every lie I had packaged neatly into a slideshow. The evening breeze felt too soft against the chaos that was boiling in my head. I answered. Hello? There was silence for a second, just one but. It dragged. Then a voice I hadn't heard in nearly a decade came through the speaker. Vernon, it's Ree. That name hit me like ice water down my back. Reese Cormack. My old roommate from college. My best man. The guy who vanished from my life the same year I proposed to Celia. No warning, no goodbye. Just disappeared. He never returned calls. Never. Responded to emails, and eventually, I stopped trying until now. Ree, I said, genuinely stunned. Are you? ... What's going on? Where have you? I know this is a horrible time, he interrupted, his voice low, cautious. But I just found out what's happening, and I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I've been keeping something from you, and you deserve to hear it from me, not from her, not from anyone else. My heart started racing again, faster than when I saw those texts from Celia. It's faster than when she said, I'm seeing someone. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was something buried. He hesitated. I'm the reason she took the job. At Holstead Consulting, I helped her get it. She said it was for growth, for independence, that you were suffocating her. But that's not the full story. I sat down on the porch step, barely feeling the wood against my legs. What are you saying, Ree? I didn't know at first. I swear to you. But last year, around Christmas, she reached out to me again. Told me she wanted to meet up, catch up. She said we had drinks, just as friends or. That's what I thought. Then, she told me you weren't fulfilling her emotionally, that she was confused about your marriage. She said she needed someone who really saw her. I closed my eyes, already feeling the storm forming behind his words. Did something happen? I asked. Quietly, between you two. A pause. Yes, he said finally once, but it didn't mean anything to me. It was a mistake. I told her I wasn't going to be part of it again, and I cut her off. That's why I disappeared. That's why I stopped coming around. I couldn't face you. I couldn't. Lie to your face and pretend it hadn't happened. I didn't speak. My throat was too tight. She told me it was just a one-time thing, that you were still her world, that she just needed to feel alive again, whatever that meant. I believed. Her, I whispered. I convinced myself you two would work it out, but she lied to both of us. Yes, he said, voice cracking, and I should have told you sooner. I just... Look, I hated myself for it. I still do. I laughed bitterly, wiping my face. You're telling me this now? Tonight of all nights? I just saw the video, Vern. Someone posted a clip of the party on social media. I saw her face on that projector screen. I knew then that you had found out about everything else, too. I figured it was time to stop being a coward. For a moment, I didn't say a word. There was too much burning in me, anger, confusion, grief. But it wasn't all aimed at Ree. Strangely, I felt more betrayed by how normal Celia had acted these past few months. Like she'd already buried everything she destroyed and just moved on without so much as a flinch. I didn't just lose a wife, I muttered. I lost who I thought I was. You didn't lose yourself, he replied. You just gave too much to someone who didn't deserve it. The line went quiet after that. I didn't hang up. He didn't either. It was just two men sitting in the wreckage of a broken truth, waiting for the air to feel safe again. Eventually, I stood up and walked back inside. The slideshow had ended. The room was quiet. Most of the guests had left. A few remained, huddled in the kitchen, whispering with wide eyes, unsure if it was rude to make eye contact with me. Cody gave me a small nod. He had turned off the camera. There were no more photos to show. But just when I thought the evening had delivered its final blow, I found a handwritten note tucked between the cushions of the couch. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to someone else entirely, and what it said changed everything I thought I knew about Celia and this party. The paper was creased and smudged along the edges, like it had been folded and unfolded 100 times a single slip. Wedged between two couch cushions, as if someone had sat on it accidentally or tried to hide it quickly. I picked it up slowly, thinking maybe it was a shopping list or one of those Toto notes Celia scribbled constantly and forgot about. But as I unfolded it and saw the handwriting, I knew instantly it wasn't meant for me. Can't wait to see you after he passes out tonight. Save me a drink and a smile, Jay. I stared at it for so long my vision blurred. Jace, it wasn't just some note she wrote and tucked away. It was deliberate. She had hidden it somewhere inside our home, and judging by the careful folds, it had been read, reread, maybe kept close like a souvenir, maybe even used as motivation. My heart sank lower than I thought it could go. The letter confirmed what? I hadn't yet allowed myself to believe. This wasn't a recent affair. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't some emotional detour brought on by midlife boredom. It was premeditated, planned. She had used our party, our friends, our home as the backdrop to a game she never expected to lose control of. I slumped onto the couch, note in hand, replaying everything that had led to this moment, every apology I had accepted without question every time I blamed myself for her growing distance. And now I was sitting in the very space she had mapped her betrayal around, like some kind of sick blueprint. Cody walked into the room again, a bottle of water. In hand, he looked like he wanted to say something, but was hesitant. I must have looked completely hollow. "What's that?" he asked quietly, gesturing toward the note. I handed it to him wordlessly. He read it, brow furrowed, and muttered, "Jesus." "Yeah," I said. "That about sums it up." He sat down next to me. We didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, "You want me to make sure no one else posts that video?" Part of me wanted to say yes to sweep it all away, clean it up before it became viral fuel for people who didn't know me, didn't care. But the other part, the deeper, sharper part, said no, not this time. "No," I told him. "Let it stay. Let her see what it feels like when the world watches her truth." He nodded slowly as we sat there in silence. Something strange happened. A knock at the door. Not a light one, not a nervous one, but loud, rhythmic. Cody and I looked at each other. She wouldn't come back now, would she? Stood up, my heart already starting to hammer again. When I opened the door, I expected 100 things. Celia returning in tears. A neighbor complaining about noise. Even Jay trying to show up and start some kind of scene. But it wasn't any of those people. It was Mara, my wife's sister. We hadn't spoken in nearly a year, not since a family vacation where Celia got drunk and accused Mara of trying to parent her marriage. They stopped speaking. I never knew the full story, just that it ended ugly and fast. And now, here she was on my doorstep, cheeks flushed, eyes red, holding her phone tightly in one hand. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice low. I stepped aside. Without a word, she walked in, glanced around at the half-empty living room, then looked at the projector, which still sat frozen on the final image from the slideshow. "I saw it," she said quietly. I nodded. "Everyone saw it." "No," she replied. "I saw everything. It's been lying to all of us." Mara sat down, placed her phone on the coffee table, and took a deep breath, like she was about to pull the pin on something big. "She didn't just cheat, Vernon. I didn't want to say anything before, but I can't stay silent now. There's something." "You don't know? Something I should have told you a long time ago?" I leaned forward slowly, throat dry. "What?" "She's been planning to leave you for months. Not just emotionally, financially, strategically. And she's been using me as a scapegoat for everything you two fought about. She told you I meddled, but the truth is she asked me to help her hide money, move it into a separate account under her maiden name. I thought she was scared of something. I thought maybe it was abuse. God, I wish it had been. But now I see what it really was. It was just cold-blooded manipulation." The room spun. I wanted to throw something, break something, but instead, I just sat there, mouth slightly open, unable to believe how deep this actually ran. How many people had unknowingly played parts in her story without realizing they were. Just props. Even her own sister. Mara looked me dead in the eye. "You need to freeze your joint accounts now before she takes everything." I shot up from the couch, adrenaline replacing the sadness that had anchored me for hours. I grabbed my laptop, hands shaking, heart pounding, and opened the bank portal. The joint account balance was staring at me in the top corner. But what I saw nearly dropped me to the floor. She had already done it. Everything gone. I stared at the screen, praying I had entered the wrong password, that the number I was seeing couldn't possibly be real. My throat dried out like sand. I refreshed the page again, and again. $13.72. Our joint account, our safety net, our mortgage cushion. Our future was gutted weeks ago by the looks of the transaction history. The pattern was too familiar. Small withdrawals first, then a sudden wire transfer labeled LLP services, then nothing. She'd done it, not just cheated, not just lied. She had stripped me down financially and walked out the door like it was just another Saturday errand, like I was disposable. A placeholder, a source of funding for whatever twisted second life she had started building behind my back. Mara's voice broke through the static in my head. "Did she already take it?" I couldn't answer. I just turned the screen toward her. She sucked in a sharp breath. Oh my God. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I was ruined. She hadn't just hurt me emotionally. She'd cornered me in every possible way. We'd split bills. My paycheck fed that account. I'd set it up that way because I trusted her, because that's what you do when you think you're a team, except I was playing solo this whole time, and I didn't know it. "What about your personal account?" Mara asked. I clicked over. At 1,000 and some change. Barely enough for next month's car payment. I had moved most of my funds into the joint account after our trip last year, trying to consolidate budget, be smart about our finances. Celia had praised me for being a planner. She must have been smirking the entire time. The weight of everything collapsed on me at once. The affair, the lies, the staged party, now this final blow, a silent heist that left me stripped bare. And still sitting in the same chair where I once toasted to our future, I ran a hand through my hair, trying not to scream. "I don't even know what to do now," I said, voice cracking. She took everything. And the worst part? She did it while smiling at me every morning like nothing was wrong. Mara got up and walked to the kitchen, returning with a glass of water. "You file a freeze right now. You notify the bank. You file for fraud if you need to. Get a lawyer tomorrow. You don't wait. She's gone this far. She's not stopping." I nodded numbly. I followed her voice like it was a lifeline, called the bank, locked the account, reported the withdrawal as suspicious. They couldn't do much immediately, but at least the bleeding had stopped for now. And still, through all of this, one question kept digging its way to the surface of my brain. Why now? Why today? Why announce the affair before the party? Why pick this particular moment to finally let the mask slip? Is it arrogance? A power move? Did she actually think she could come back, drink sangria, pose for selfies, and laugh while the walls burned around me? Or was there something more? That's when I remembered the envelope. 3 days ago, it had arrived in the mail, addressed to Celia, handwritten, no return address. She'd snatched it off the counter before I could even glance at it. I assumed it was something from a friend, maybe wedding stuff, a baby shower. One of the many things I wasn't fun enough to be involved in anymore. Now I wasn't so sure. I went upstairs to the bedroom, ignoring the mess from her frantic pre-party prep drawers left open, makeup smeared on tissue, a half-sip purse still sitting on the bed. I opened it. Inside was the envelope still sealed, torn slightly at the corner like she had started to open it and then changed her mind. I slipped the letter out slowly, scared of what it might say, scared of learning one more thing I'd have to carry. It wasn't a letter. It was a copy of a hotel receipt one night. 2 guests, her name and my boss's name. The room spun again. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the paper slipping from my fingers and landing on the carpet like a final piece of proof that my life had become a parody of itself. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just a financial ambush. This was coordinated. Layered deceit so ridiculous it felt cinematic. Celia wasn't just sleeping with some office fling. She was sleeping with my boss, the man who had interviewed me, who had written my promotion letter, who smiled at me every morning across meetings, telling me how lucky I was to have a wife. So invested in my success. Here they were, both investing in a night at the Wingate Hotel with 2 complimentary breakfasts and a checkout receipt time-stamped. 11:47 a.m. Suddenly, everything made sense. The subtle tension at work, the weird glances from HR, the recent cancellation of the leadership retreat that Celia had never heard of despite it being on my calendar. They'd been plotting something bigger. Maybe she wanted me out of the company. Maybe she wanted to discredit me. Or maybe this was just her way of twisting the knife as far as it could go before she disappeared entirely. Either way, I wasn't staying silent anymore. The projector had shown the emotional damage. But the truth was about to get louder because I still had one more surprise ready for Celia, one she wouldn't be able to erase, undo, or explain away. And this time, the whole damn room would hear. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a slideshow of everything I didn't want to remember. Celia adjusting her hair before walking out to meet someone else. The projector flickering in the corner of the living room, while whispers filled the air. Reese's voice shaking with guilt, the bank account balance flashing 0, and now the receipt, my boss's name printed just below hers, like they were business partners in betrayal. Morning came gray and silent. I didn't open the blinds. I didn't want to see the daylight, pretending the world had gone on like nothing happened. I sat in the chair across from our bed, the one she used to throw her jacket on, and just stared. At her side of the closet, half empty, some hangers missing, she had taken what mattered: clothes, makeup, money, dignity, and she left me with questions and rage. Mara had crashed on the couch downstairs, but I didn't wake her. I needed quiet to think. I brewed coffee just for the habit of it. I didn't even drink it. The bitterness in my mouth was already enough. That's when the plan started to take shape. Celia thought she had ended the story when she walked out with her head held high, smug and untouchable. She thought the worst I could do was show some texts at a party. But now, I had more proof that her affair wasn't just emotional, but strategic. She used me. She used my job. She undermined both, and I was going to make sure she didn't get to rewrite it. I grabbed a flash drive, copied the hotel receipt onto it, then pulled all the documents I could find that connected her to my boss's emails about mentorship dinners, shared projects, travel logs that never lined up with my calendar. I compiled it into a neat folder labeled Wingate Protocol. Then I added one more thing. An audio file. It was from a month ago, recorded by accident on my phone. I hadn't even known it was there until I was clearing storage. It was short but clear, her voice, and someone else's, definitely male. Doesn't even know what's happening at work. Poor guy is so obsessed with dinner plans and party lights he hasn't noticed half the board thinks he's irrelevant. The voice that laughed after that. That was my boss. I stared at the waveform on the screen for a long time, listening to the cruelty layered under every syllable. That wasn't just cheating, that was professional sabotage. She had fed him things, maybe confidential things about my role, my insecurities, maybe even my long-term ideas for the company. It explained why I was recently pulled from a few big projects. I hadn't failed. She'd poisoned the well from inside. I didn't just deserve justice now. Ow. I needed it before. I lost my job before I lost everything. By 10 a.m., it sent the flash drive files to 3 places: the company's anonymous HR ethics inbox, a private employment attorney a friend had once recommended, and a personal backup account I created years ago but never used. I wasn't going to let her pull the rug out from under me again. Right as I was closing the lid on my laptop, my phone buzzed. It was her, Celia. I stared at her name for a long time. She hadn't texted, hadn't called not once since slamming the door during the party. I let it ring twice before answering, pressing the phone to my ear in silence. "Vernon," she said. No apology, no panic, just the tone of someone trying to regain control. "I think we should talk somewhere neutral." "Neutral?" I repeated, unable to stop the laugh that pushed out of me. "There's nothing neutral left between us." A pause. "I understand you're angry, but things got out of hand. I didn't want it to happen like that."
"I know," I asked coldly. "What?"
"Did you want confetti and champagne while you introduced your side piece to our guests?" Her voice tightened. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." "That wasn't fair." "Fair," I snapped. "You drained our account. You slept with my boss. You planned your exit months ago and still made me chop fruit for sangria while you plotted your little vanishing act. And now you're worried about fairness?" She went quiet for a second, then softened her tone. "Listen, I just want to move on peacefully. I think we both know this marriage has run its course. I don't want to drag this out. I've spoken to someone about dividing what's left, and I think if we're both smart about this..." I cut her off. "You think there's still a version of this where you get to walk away looking reasonable? I'm offering you a clean break." "No," I said. "You're offering me a polite cover story, but I'm not interested. You're making this harder than it needs to be." "No," I repeated. "You already did that. And Celia, just so you know, HR will be in touch." The line went dead. I stood there, phone still in hand, my heart beating steady, now not with pain but with a new kind of clarity. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't just reacting to what she'd done. I was ahead of her. But the final blow hadn't landed yet because I wasn't done. Not until the last piece of the puzzle fell into place publicly. And I had one more surprise for her, this time in person. I didn't hear from her again after that call, not a text. Not an email, no apology, no acknowledgement. But I didn't need one. 2 days later, I got an email from corporate HR, formal, sterile. The kind of message that strips names and feelings down to a case file. It confirmed a receipt of my submitted materials. They had launched an internal investigation, and I was advised not to speak directly with Celia or my supervisor during the process. Fine by me. I wasn't looking for confrontation anymore. I wasn't. After revenge? Either, not really. What I wanted was something quieter, something better, closure, peace. A life where I didn't have to keep checking receipts or wonder who she was texting while. I cooked dinner. It all moved faster than I expected. By the end of the week, my boss was placed on administrative leave. Rumors swirled, but I didn't feed them. I kept my head down and waited. And then, on a rainy Thursday morning, I was called into a meeting with HR and 2 other department heads. I half-expected to be fired out of guilt by association. Instead, they offered me his position. Apparently, my project proposals and long-term strategy documents, the ones I thought had been ignored or dismissed, had quietly impressed the leadership team. The only problem was they'd been mysteriously deprioritized. I didn't have to guess. Who made sure of that? With Celia and him out of the picture, my work finally got to speak for itself. I accepted the role. The irony wasn't lost on me. I got the promotion she once said I wasn't ambitious enough for. I was the same guy who used to buy her favorite granola and get mocked for being too sentimental. Now I was running the very meetings she tried to use to climb over me. And yet, it didn't feel like a victory, not in a petty way. It felt like breath, like relief, a clean page. I moved out of the house 2 weeks later, took only what I needed, I didn't want reminders. I left behind the throw pillows she obsessed over. The wine glasses she said made her feel elegant, and even the dining table we picked out together. Let it all rot. Signed the divorce papers the moment they hit my inbox. No fighting, no drama, just a full stop. The money? A surprise twist. Mara testified willingly. She provided screenshots, voice messages, and bank statements that proved Celia's deception and intent to conceal funds. My lawyer took it from there. Long story short, I got most of it back, not all, but enough. Enough to breathe again. Enough to stand back up. And Mara, she and I talked more after that. At first it was just logistics, coordinating paperwork, figuring out what else Celia had tucked away. But slowly our conversations became less about her and more about Usabat. How we both spent years making excuses for someone who only gave us fragments of herself. About the strange mutual understanding that comes from being burned by the same flame. We're not rushing anything. But last weekend I met her for coffee. No drama, no flashbacks, just two people smiling across a small table, wondering if maybe something good could grow from everything that went wrong. And as for Celia, she sent one final message, a short email from a new address. I saw what you did. I hope you're proud. Didn't reply because I am proud, not for exposing her, not for winning, but for surviving, for getting back up, for learning that sometimes